Tonight, we are welcoming Dolphins Talk's Tom Ernisse on to break down this critical Week 2 matchup between the Bills and the Dolphins. But first, our guys from Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia Worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron. Aaron, it is Dolphins week. I wasn't ready for it to be a big game. Are you ready?
I was ready for it to be a big game. I wasn't ready. I'm not ready in terms of I don't love how quick this flips from Monday night. I've been complaining to my wife all night. She didn't care. I'm going to complain to you. I don't know if you care. People out there care.
I'll pretend.
At least as a content creator here, man, I'd like to have that Sunday, not Monday game and savor a whole next day of the victory and go back through and watch that victory and then get on to the next opponent. And then I have 2 days to really prep for this Wednesday show. We try to get this show in our time slot here for Wednesday. But I really had 1 day. So I'm a little behind on the Dolphins. I'm excited, though, because our guest is going to get me caught up here tonight on the Dolphins a little bit. And it's Finn's week. And I haven't really gotten to I've still been processing the win, getting ready for this loss. I haven't really gotten to enjoy engaging in the nonsense that is Twitter for Finn's week. Have you gotten in on any of that yet?
The good news is I engaged on your behalf and like 6 other people's behalf. Had a wonderful back and forth with a gentleman in Dolphins Twitter today. It's fun. It's fun. And
I'll go look for that after here.
Good dude.
Put it in the show notes.
It's very entertaining. It's very entertaining. But without further ado, our special guest tonight, you guys have seen him before, our man from Dolphins Talk, Tom Ernisse. Tom, how we doing, my man?
Good, guys. How you doing? Thanks for having me back on.
Absolutely. We just, we need to be, even-handed and objective here. We want to give you some time to gloat and to feel good about this amazing game on Sunday. So I'm going to give you the floor.
Yeah, not a lot of time, but we'll give you. You have some time here.
But no, honestly, it's I have been as critical of Tua as anyone. I have said repeatedly. I'll say it later tonight. I am terrified of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but I don't believe in Tua. And that's the reason I haven't been nervous, is that I just don't believe it's sustainable. And I'll say it's getting a little bit harder each week to hold that stance. And watching this comeback this past week, people threw around the blown coverages, the different things. 469 yards and 6 touchdowns is 469 yards and 6 touchdowns. It's really hard to nitpick with a game like that. How is Dolphins Twitter, and how was it watching a comeback like that?
Well, once the third quarter ended for me, I was just kind of lounging in my chair and just taking in some notes for our post-game wrap-up show, not expecting really anything to come of it. And as soon as he hit Tyreek Hill on back-to-back long throws, one was a very nice actually, both were very nice throws. The Tyreek Hill, when he was wide open on the blown coverage, I just stood up with my hands on the head and I was yelling actually at the Baltimore Ravens. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Why are you letting him just run past you like that? But it was incredible. Dolphins fans are juiced, to say the least. I don't think we've seen this kind of comeback in a long time. From a fan perspective and, from the NFL perspective, not many teams are coming back down from 21 points with about 10 minutes left of the fourth quarter. So you typically just write it off, but the team showed a lot of moxie. I have to give a ton of credit to Mike McDaniel. He did not waver, and his game plan in the fourth quarter, as he saw what the Ravens were doing defensively throughout the game, as soon as, Tua hit the long ball to Tyreek Hill, he had the guy, the Ravens started backing off a little bit, and then Tua was just underneath routes, and he was hitting the intermediate throws over the middle, and it just worked to perfection. Now, the only thing that I've said to you guys before we jumped on, it was incredible to see the comeback. It was just one game in a long season. The Dolphins are 2-0 coming into a huge matchup against the Bills, a team that has just absolutely destroyed them for the last 3.5, 4 years. So we're excited to get to this week. We're excited to get to the measuring stick of where Miami is in comparison to Buffalo. Win or lose, we're going to figure it out. And, it's a short week for Miami too, going to Cincinnati on Thursday. So I would love for this game to now be put on the back burner from Baltimore. But, people are still going to talk about it for many weeks just because of how it happened and the performance that Tua did put on in that game.
Yeah, I want to ask. So we've talked about being critical of Tua. I've been very critical of Mike McDaniel, and I'm sure you've seen some of my tweets about McDaniel. I'm sure some Miami fans have some of them bookmarked to put me in my place at some point.
Yeah,
but
I may have one actually.
Yeah, and the Bills, a lot of Bills fans out there in Bills universe, and I will talk about it later here too, is how dominant the Bills have been since Sean McDermott's arrived. But that's really was the Brian Flores era of the Miami Dolphins, right? Can you talk about whether or not you like McDaniel or not? I think talk about the culture change, because I think there is a true culture change happening in Miami. It's not the way Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane have done it.
It feels different.
It's a different version.
We've seen a lot of around the NFL.
Yeah, I don't know that it's been one that's familiar to people that are around the Sean McDermott's is more conservative and like the process, and we're going to grind it out, where this seems a little more fit for Miami, we'll just say, in a more laid back atmosphere. But it seems early to be reaping rewards. Do you think that is part of what we're seeing in the turnaround of this franchise right now?
I think so. I think, it's a culture shock, and a lot of the players have talked about it, from Brian Flores, who is this authoritarian type coach. Guys were talking about when they were leaving meeting rooms, they were walking down the hallways like single file, and like all this crazy like talk that was going on. And a lot of guys were very reserved. Obviously, Tua was very reserved. He did not have a great relationship with Brian Flores.
Well, they didn't believe in him at all, right?
He didn't believe in him at all. And they think the biggest change is immediately when Mike McDaniel was hired, his first phone call was to Tua. And to tell him that we're going to get after it. I'm going to make you better, and you're going to make me better. We're going to work through this together. And I think it was just rebuilding Tua's confidence, his mindset, going into each game. And you see a little bit of difference. You see him on the field hours before kickoff, just kind of going through the motions, kind of like you see Russell Wilson without all the weird stuff Russell Wilson does. Tua's out there, just kind of running the offense.
Spinning around with his eyes closed in the middle of the field. You're saying that's weird? Are you saying that's weird?
Is that odd?
A little bit, yes.
But it's bigger too than that. So one thing I heard today that was really interesting was on Good Morning Football. McCourty was talking about last year being with the Dolphins and that early game against the Bills, and that they were all talking about that upset the year before, in that the Bills blew them out. And the mood for that week of the Bills game, he said, was just dejected, right? Like in the building, they just kind of knew, like, the Bills have had our number and they're going to continue to have our number. Yep. I think the culture change that we're seeing will be tested in this week, in that, is it big enough to not have that happen when the Bills come to town? And that the people that have been there have that cloud of, oh, we can't get over this team. Is it a totally new, hey, this is a new team going forward, we're past that? Is that what this team's kind of measuring this game to?
Yeah, Mike McDaniel said after the game was over and in his press conference on Monday that, what better way to see where you are than going against the current division champions and one of the best teams in the NFL. Mm-hmm. That's how they're preparing for the week. I think, with a fresh slate, you don't forget about the losses. Those have happened and they were bad. A lot of those guys have been a part of those losses, so they have the taste in their mouth. But I think what Mike McDaniel trying to do, we're going to work through everything that we're going to work through in game, and we're going to see where we stand with Buffalo. Again, win or lose, we're going to know. and I said last night with Anthony, what I am hoping out of this game is that it's just, it's a measuring stick, but I want Miami to be competitive in the game, not 2 quarters competitive like they were last year in the Buffalo game until the Buffalo Bills just blew the doors off them in the second half. It's from kickoff till the clock reaches 0 in the fourth quarter. Are you competitive with this football team? Are you able to pull out a W? Or if you do lose, did you lose in a very close football game? No more 17-plus point blowouts. This has to be a 1-score game minimum for these guys as a measuring stick if they do lose. Obviously, we're all hoping for a win on our side of the table, but we'll see how it plays out.
So before we get into the matchups in our normal offense versus defense run, this week on both sides, it's been heavily impacted by the injury report. And I know everybody's kind of waiting
a short week for us, man.
Yeah, waiting for tomorrow to come out. But we thought we'd start there by sharing what we saw so far and what we're seeing in the actual report itself. So we'll start on your side of it. Both teams with, multiple critical players not participating, and then some other important guys still on the report itself. So obviously some of the big time names here, Melvin Ingram's just a vet rest day, but having Xavier Howard and Terron Armstead there, what's your level of actual concern with their availability and with their progress in practice this week? Is it that you feel pretty good that it's going to work its way back, or is there actual question with either of those two?
Terron Armstead played the entire game last week with that toe injury. He was a no practice, and he's been no practice on the first 2 Wednesdays of the season through the first 2 weeks. So this doesn't surprise me. I would assume that he goes back to bare minimum, limited participant on Thursday's practice, and then most likely ramps up to a full practice on Friday. For Xavier Howard, I don't believe that's anything. He played the entire game. It didn't look like he was hurt at any point. Maybe trying to chase down Lamar Jackson on that long touchdown, maybe tweak something, but I think he's going to be good to go. Melvin Ingram's been vet rest. Hunter Long was a late scratch last week. He was actually left home, so I don't think that we're going to see him. And Cethan Carter's concussion kept him out of the game last week, so it's significant enough where he may not still clear protocol. And that would mean Tanner Connor would be the guy who's actually a full participant in practice today.
Do you, on the Bill side of any of this, do you see any that stand out to you that you think that the Dolphins can really take advantage of, or that you want to ask us about? That you don't
well, the Micah Hyde one stands out in regards of it, his neck. Was he on the injury report last week at all, or is this something he picked up?
No, this was from the game. This is from the game, and I haven't seen anything on the actual severity of this. Have you, Greg? It seemed like he went to the hospital with the same night that Dane did, but we don't know the severity of that, just to get the test. And McDermott was like, no, this is just totally precautionary. So we don't know. And they did a walkthrough today. So all these participation things are all in walkthrough. I'm assuming that was the same for you guys, a walkthrough.
I would assume that's the case.
Although no, we're on a short day too. This was our first gathering day.
And so it's hard on Buffalo side, one, because of the walkthrough. We don't really know. They're never very good about projecting that. We saw lots of movement.
And last year, Micah was in and off on that red jersey. Correct. He did not participate. He's one of those guys.
Yep. And during the game, so Hyde, Phillips, Knox, and Milano all were injured during the game, but at the point where the Bills were up 24-31.
Yeah,
so it was kind of hard to know, they designated them as out for the rest of the game, but did they have to sit out, or that's when they pulled all the starters anyways?
Phillips looked like he's going to be out a while.
Yeah, he pulled up. He looked like
he looked like a sniper took him out.
Yeah, it did, and I hate to laugh about it.
No,
because that's for real. Yeah,
that's a big man.
That could take a while.
That's a lot of hamstring to heal.
Yeah,
so either way, I do think that. In my mind, obviously, Dane Jackson, we saw how serious that was. It looks like we have cleared the most serious elements of that there wasn't anything long-term. That was scary in the moment. But obviously, I don't expect him to play this week immediately. That's still, at a minimum, a lot of stuff was strained. He bent in a way you're not supposed to bend. Jordan Phillips, the hamstring looked very serious. it certainly seemed some of the other names, Gabe Davis, Ed Oliver, seemed like they was one of those things
right
where
away from not
if it was a playoff game, maybe they probably would have gone, but didn't because of the longer run here. So I expect guys like that back. Yeah. Seeing Morris and Milano there at full and limited was good. Knox not practicing was interesting, and then Hyde's the biggest one in question. That I think he's the one. We don't expect Dane Jackson or Jordan Phillips to play. I kind of do expect Austin Knox to play, but did not participate, obviously, is a concern. Micah is the one in question that I just don't know, and I think tomorrow's report's really going to tell us.
Yeah, Mike is the one that stands out for me too, especially with the speed. And
God, if I don't have him in center field, so again, no one can keep up with Waddle and Hill. They just, those humans don't exist. There's not people who can run stride for stride with them. But do I think Micah can play center field versus Tua's arm and beat them to the spot of where the ball is?
I don't want to find out.
I'm okay finding out if it's Micah Hyde. I am not interested in Jaquan Johnson being that guy back in center field. Right. I'll take it a fighting chance with Micah Hyde being the guy having to beat him to the spot. I'm not interested in that go the other direction. But let's start. Unfortunately, I drew the rough straw here, and I didn't get the fun matchup that we're gonna go through here. But starting out with what we've seen. And this defense, the Bills offense against the Dolphins defense. I know things were skewed last week because you give up that slant that Bateman took and then the long run. Those two plays really skew any metric that's out there. You give up 2 70-yarders and you're in a 2-game sample size. Of course, they look like one of the worst defenses in the league.
I would like to bookmark that comment for later comments as well. I just wanted, I'm just saying.
I use that to my advantage when things are on pace for fun things, when it's in my favor. Okay. It only doesn't count when it's against my interest. So my question to you, Tom, is they still happen. They gave up those plays. The stats are the stats. I mean, in theory, statistically, they're a bottom 5 defense in the league. That's not what we expected coming in with this secondary and that front. How, just as a whole, before we get into some of the specific matchups, how concerned are you with what we've seen? How much of it is, I won't lie, I didn't know a ton about, going in and seeing guys like Cater Kuhu. Like, that wasn't a name I was prepared for. I was planning on Byron Jones, and then you see him go on IR, and you see the different spots here. How much of it are some of the names missing, and how much of it is maybe a little bit of concern?
There obviously is a little bit of concern on the defensive side. We haven't seen much out of Jalen Phillips just yet. He's got 1 solo tackle in 2 games, and that's not what you would want out of a guy who was really coming into his own last year in his rookie season. Mm-hmm. The Cater Kohu thing, he's more of a surprise than anything else on how well he's been playing as an undrafted corner. One thing that really stood out for me last week with Cater was that he was inserted in the game in the second half, and Nick Needham was benched.
I was curious about that with the snaps. Was it if it was him coming in nickel, or him going outside and moving Needham into nickel, or going to the 3 safety look and pulling Needham out? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, they pulled Needham. Needham, I believe, only played 3 snaps in the second half, and Cater Kohu, and he did a tremendous job as Baltimore. Outside of the long run from Lamar Jackson and that late field goal, the Ravens couldn't really do anything in the second half for the most part. I don't know if it was them just taking their foot off the gas because they had such a comfortable lead. But Kohu has been very good in his first 2 weeks. Obviously, this is a big test for him if he does draw the start opposite of Xavier Howard in this game, going against either Diggs or Gabe Davis. So we'll see where he really is on the measuring stick this week. But from a concern perspective, I'm on a scale of 10. I think my concern level right now is at like a 4. I think from a scheme perspective last week, they just took the tape from last year and the aggressiveness that they threw at Lamar Jackson and thought that was going to work again. and they had a counter for it. They counter punched it with the option run on that third down touchdown and the quick passes and slants to get the ball out of Lamar Jackson's hand quick. And that's another thing going into this game is, Josh Allen's really good about getting the ball out of his hand quick. And, if the Dolphins send the amoeba blitzes and the cover zero looks, that leaves your guys one-on-one. And can you keep up with the Diggs and can you keep up with the Gabe Davis? We know from past games, the answer is no. They haven't been able to. I think that they are going to still send the blitzes to Josh Allen. I just don't know the frequency of it because I think I saw Josh Allen's only been blitzed 7 total times this year or something crazy low.
So that was going to be my next question here is I'm curious if at some point we actually saw people were dogging the Cardinals for blitzing Patrick Mahomes. And I was trying to make the point that, of course, it's easy to make fun of anything that doesn't work. But I kind of respect the fact of, hey, what's the good of sitting back knowing that he's absolutely going to kill us little slices at a time, but feeling better about it that we made him work for it versus if I throw some variance at him in some plays, yes, we might be more likely to get killed quicker, but there's at least a chance that we land and that we get the blitz gets home and we get sacks and turnovers and high variance plays where we steal a possession. And that I almost wonder if teams, we saw it obviously happen week 1 with Patrick Mahomes. And I almost wonder if Mahomes and Allen are going to get like that, where it seems crazy, but that, hey, what's the point of sitting back if we now know they're willing to take a profit and willing to check down and willing to get the ball out of their hands in 2.2 seconds? Why not? Why not throw the kitchen sink at them and just see if we can come up with the right blitz or the right strip sack or the right variance in the matchup? So that was going to be my question on, obviously this defense isn't going to go to no blitzes like that. They're one of the highest, most aggressive defenses in the league. But I think the one thing we haven't seen in the first 2 weeks is they're not getting home. Like they're sending them, but they're not getting home. The pressure rates are decent. The pass rush win rate is decent. The sack totals aren't there. And I think that's where you see giving up 38 points.
Yeah. The key for me is, the sack total numbers are, I wouldn't say it's like the be all end all stat. The pressure rate to me is the most important thing. Cause if you can get pressure on the quarterback, that can force the issue. As long as your guys on the back end can maintain their coverage and not allow guys to run free, those coverage sacks are huge. And if the Dolphins do a good job on disguising when they're going to send the guys in, they're going to put linebackers in the A gap. You're going to see Brandon Jones and Javon Holland sitting on the edges, looking like they're going to come in on a blitz. They want Josh to think pre-snap. And then if they bail out, how do they bail out? Do they send guys off the edge? Do they send the guys through the A gap? How are they going to put pressure on Josh Allen? Is a big factor for me in this game. And if they can get some of these pressures and, Brandon Jones, for instance, week 1, hit Mac Jones on the blind side. The Patriots did a poor job seeing that and picking it up, and it resulted in a touchdown. Am I saying that's going to happen to Josh Allen? No, but that's the type of hit that you want to put on a quarterback to get him to think. If you can't get Josh Allen to the ground, or if you can't get him on a clean hit as he's releasing the throw, he's just going to be able to pick you apart all game long and be able to, figure out what you're going to do and break out of the blitz and then run with the football or find a guy open on an off-scripted play. I'm interested to see what Josh Boyer does in this game and how we can counter what the Bills are going to throw at them. I think one thing that could set the table, get a couple stops early. Don't allow Buffalo to score as quickly as they have in the first 2 games of the season.
Currently 7 straight opening touchdown drives.
Yeah.
7 straight games, second longest in history.
Well scripted stuff from Ken Dorsey and obviously Brian Daboll last year. And that's the thing. Can Miami outscript the Bills defensively on that opening drive? Can they keep them out of the end zone to give your offense a chance to maybe set the tone for the game? that's going to be key for me. But getting pressure on Josh Allen via the blitz is big. They just have to be able to play on the back end and not allow Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, potentially Dawson Knox, McKenzie, whoever it is, run free and allow them to, pick up those 5 to 8 yard chunk plays on early downs to allow Buffalo just to run their offense and live in second and short, third and short, and be able to pick up the first downs easily.
So real quick before I give you over to Aaron, I just want to complain. The Bills have had a lock on the best safety duo in the NFL, the best safety in the division, all pro safeties here. And it pains me that in the not too distant future, the Dolphins are going to have the best safety in the division and maybe in the NFL. Because God, I hate how good Javon Holland is. He's such a fun player to watch, and I don't like it that you guys have him.
That was the parting gift from Brian Flores, is drafting Javon Holland. It was kind of a surprise to me that he fell where he did, because there's guys that were projecting him, in the early 20s in that draft. And the fact that he fell to the mid 30s was just a blessing in disguise for Miami, and he fits this defense to a T. The aggressiveness that he has, he could play center field. He could play as like a linebacker. He is essentially what Flores wanted Mika Fitzpatrick to do when he came in 2019. He wanted Mika to play everywhere. He babied his way out. And it's funny that he's actually coaching the defense and Mika's there too. So that's really funny to me. But Javon Holland, to me, can be a game wrecker if he's put into the right position, because he can play the football, he can pinpoint it at its highest point, intercept passes, he can hit guys clean over the middle with hard shots. He plays the game exactly the way you want a free safety to play the game.
I don't like it.
I think a little bit of disrespect to Damar Hamlin and Jaquan Johnson, but with your comment there, Greg. But I'll let it slide this time. I still think the future of safety is in Buffalo. But let's get into this, because actually everybody wants to get on our side of the ball here. That what we're going to talk about here with the Miami offense versus the Bills defense. We're talking about the number 2 overall offense in DVOA versus the number 1 overall defense in DVOA. This is where the matchup's going to be made, right? This is strength versus strength, or supposed strength versus strength, as week 2 into this season, at least in the statistical how it's going to play out here. This is, from my view, the best Miami offense with the most weapons, the most getting ready for this time. This is the 4th time we've talked to you on this show. And getting ready for a matchup like this. This is the scariest it's been for me in terms of 1 or 2 plays can be something that change in the outcome, and that you have those guys on the offensive side of the ball. And so, in my opinion, this starts with those wide receivers. So let's talk about this wide receiving core that you guys were able to put together here through the draft, and then through a move to bring in
terrifying. I hate
Tyreek Hill. Yeah, it really is. The thing that's even more terrifying is, as much as I give McDaniels a hard time, the fact that he was able to end up with 2 guys like this in that type of scheme is kind of unfair to the rest of the league. And I think as long as you got them, you guys got a chance. But talk about these guys and how, it's a 2-headed monster attack on offense. It starts and ends there. So talk about how they're going to get them open, what they're going to do to this Bills back 7.
One thing that I loved from the Baltimore game in particular last week was just how, the constant motion pre-snap. And there are certain situations where Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were actually lined up next to each other before the snap. And I believe it was one play, Jalen Waddle had Patrick Queen as the guy that was on him, and it ended up being a 17-yard completion to Waddle. It's because you're able to, there's so much focus on Tyreek Hill, and with great reason. He's such a elusive wide receiver. He's lightning fast, and that puts a little more pressure on the defense to figure out, okay, where's Hill going to be? They want to get him the ball. He's getting paid $30 million. But then before the snap, you see Jalen Waddle kind of move into motion to that side, and then you're like, oh, crap. All right, now what do we do? Who's going to be on Waddle? He's lined up now, typically based on our defense. This might be the linebacker. It might be the safety has to come up, the slot, whatever it is. One of those guys is going to get open just based on some of the designs of these plays. Whether it could be like a legal rub route or it's just a quick hitter, a quick slant. I actually saw in that game against the Ravens, Tua takes the snap, faked a pitch, quickly turned and threw the ball on like an RPO, and that was to Trent Sherfield.
Yes.
And that was a 11, 12, 13-yard completion. So there's all these little wrinkles with the same look on offense with the way the wide receivers are lined up, the way the running backs are deployed. There's so many different ways that McDaniel is getting these guys open. And obviously it's up to the quarterback to get to the ball to the specific spot. And one thing that I've liked so far with Tua in the first 2 weeks, his progression and his reads are far better than they were last year, where he's actually moving players with his eyes, the linebacker, the safety, he's moving him with his eyes and then quickly turning his hips and throwing the ball to the opposite side or to the open spot. So a lot of good stuff coming out of the offense. McDaniel has done a great job coaching these guys the right way. And it's clear that Waddle and Hill are the cogs of the offense. Those are the guys that make this offense go. And I don't think that changes at any point.
Yeah.
And hopefully they both stay healthy, because I think both of them can achieve 1,100 yard seasons.
Yeah. One is we'll work our way here through some of the position groups. We'll end with Tua, because I want to get some thoughts from Tua. Yeah. I know we talked about him a lot before we get out, but the running back room, you started talking about how the offense really runs through those running backs going into this season with a Shanahan disciple coming to Miami and these hand selected running back room that he put together. I actually thought this would be what got them going out of the gate, is leaning on this run game through screens, getting Tua going through these running backs with the ball in space, you even using these guys more in decoy ways. And you really haven't seen a lot of production coming out of this backfield so far here in the first 2 weeks. I mean, we can tie that into the conversation about the offensive line, or we can stay right here on the running backs. But what is kind of going on with that run game? I expected more from a Shanahan disciple in that sort of how they get that going.
Yeah, the first week, the Patriots did a great job putting 8 guys in the box, knowing, and Belichick's smart enough to know a Shanahan system, they like to run the ball. So they made sure they countered that, and they wanted to force Tua to beat them.
Right.
In the second
last
game,
week, it got out of control, right?
It got out of control way too early. The game was just, 21-point deficit. You can't run the ball. But I'll pinpoint with
that's the problem with small sample size, right? Is looking at the production.
Yeah. And 40, with 40 seconds left, driving, and they're at the 35-yard line, he dials up a draw play to Chase Edmonds and just goes off tackle and runs for 27 yards. Yeah. And I think that's the key for him, is the game flow. How is the game flow going? Are we able to run the football? Because like you said, Aaron, he wants to run the ball and run it successfully to be able to allow Tua to go play action, to bring guys up to the line of scrimmage, to be able to then throw those, 15, 20-yard over the top, over the middle type throws to Hill or Waddle. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to establish a ground game early this week.
For the keep away purpose as well.
Yes, you don't want to give Buffalo too many opportunities with the football on offense. And the best way to do that is to control the clock.
Right.
Get first downs, move the football, score some points, and it kind of will then start forcing the issue. Buffalo hasn't really faced that forcing of the issue outside of that Chiefs playoff game last year. The first 2 games, they've just been able to run their offense and ho-hum, hey, we're just throwing the ball down the field. We're running the football effectively, point after point after point, where Miami needs to counter that. The ground game, to me, is a big factor in this game. I'd love to see them get it going early. Raheem Mostert seemed like he was the main guy last week. Week 1, it seemed like it was Chase Edmonds. So it's kind of a mix and match of who the lead back's going to be. But it's going to be important.
Both can pop at any time.
Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely.
So
it's a scary thing. Now, let's talk about that offensive line, because I do think some of the issues with the run game. Start up there a little bit, and especially in the interior of that offensive line. So can you tell us a little bit about, I know obviously it's a division rival, so a lot of people are going to know the names and be familiar with some of the new acquisitions, but how is that coming together here this year? It was a bit of a running joke the last year, the Miami offensive line, when we were getting ready for this game and people were licking their chops. Should Bills fans still be licking their chops, or are you guys sharing things up over there?
Oh, Buffalo's still going to lick their chops for sure.
Yeah.
Liam Eichenberg playing left guard, he's struggled through the first 2 weeks so far. Even playing next to Teron Armstead, which, playing next to him could hide some of your flaws a little bit, because of how good Armstead is. Connor Williams, I think he's played very well outside of the first snap of the season. It almost went over to his head. He's had some snapping issues, but overall he's been short. Yeah, 5'8" or so. No, I think Connor Williams has been good. Robert Hunt is, continuing to develop very well.
Yeah, that's a nice project for you guys.
Yeah, and Greg Little's replacing Austin Jackson. I didn't see a big drop off, honestly, and maybe that's just something against Austin Jackson.
I was gonna say, is that who are we saying about?
Yeah, who are you slating there?
Yeah, so I want to say with another game, and Greg Little hasn't played meaningful minutes since I think his rookie year. Okay. He fell off the face of the earth with Carolina. And he's going to get a longer run here because Austin Jackson's injured and he's out for at least the next 2 games. So I want to see better out of Liam Eichenberg. And I think you're able to get a little bit more spring in the run game if your interior guys can do what McDaniel wants them to do. The zone runs are big in this offense. The outside runs obviously are big as well. I haven't seen Teron Armstead do anything of the sort of actually pulling and making a block and running down the line like he's a tight end like they did with Trent Williams last year in San Francisco. I haven't seen that yet out of Teron Armstead. I hope I don't, because I just don't want him to get hurt.
Yeah.
But I do. I want to see more improvement from a pass protection perspective. They've been better. The first 2 games. Tua has been sacked a total of 4 times, and I would probably say 3 of the 4 were on Tua than the offensive line, and just Tua holding the ball a little bit too long. And then Justin Houston had like a ghost offensive lineman going against them last week for the 1 sack they did have in Baltimore. So pass pro has been better. They gave up 9 total pressures and 1 quarterback hit, which was a sack. So I expect that part of it to be better, but I think Buffalo is going to definitely attack the interior of the offensive line again, as they have in years past, and just kind of collapse the pocket and force Tua to go off script.
Yeah, we love interior pressure here on the Cover One Buffalo show. So,
I mean, it's in my opinion, the Bills front against the Miami Dolphins decides this game. Because if they're able to control the line of scrimmage to get a running game going, to give Tua time, I have an immense amount of faith in the Bills scheme and our coverage ability and the continuity of what's back there. But ultimately, after enough time, it simply doesn't matter. There aren't humans who can keep up with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. The only path is we have to put Tua on his butt. We have to be able to knock it out of his hand before he can throw it. We have to pressure him before he can get it out of there. Yep. And I that to me is going to be the game, because I won't say this,
Don't his numbers drop dramatically though. Time to throw, like he needs to get the ball out fast, and his numbers are much better.
Then does that that whole domino
we could go down a rabbit hole here now.
Can you consistently rally and tackle? Can you come up and get those guys? All it takes is one of those guys breaking one tackle and going. But that whole domino effect of the Dolphins offensive line against the Bills front 4, don't get me wrong, I'm sure the Dolphins are going to introduce some variants. They hope that they can keep the Bills to 27 instead of 38 or whatever it might be. I don't think there's any realistic scenario where they're holding them to 16 or something like that. So it's ultimately, can the Dolphins outscore the Bills? And that's going to come down to, can they protect Tua and keep him upright? Can they get enough of a run game going to let the play action work, to let the RPOs work? Yeah. And I just, that to me is going to decide the game, that front against the Dolphins offensive line.
Well, we'll get to your prediction in a minute. Hold on.
I'm excited.
Greg. One thing I want to pull it back real quick because this is one I want to talk about. We can brush over this real quick and then we'll get to Tua talking and get you out of here. But the Mike Gesicki thing is super weird to me, Tom. So while I got you on here and you're a Dolphins expert, this one's weird to me because
you
this
mean
is
the
a guy
touchdown dance?
Yeah, I've lusted for he looks like I look like when I gritty in front of my kids. So I connect with him. No, but Gesicki is a guy that this is like what I believe is the tight end of the future type of player. I think that he's a person that could be a game-changing guy. And I've seen it against the Buffalo. Sorry about I don't know what that is. Oh.
All right. Yeah. We got to cut Aaron off. Going through just the final thoughts of where, your head is at with those matchups and with what's there.
Here, I'm back. I was going to say, Gesicki, why can't they fit him into the scheme? If McDaniels is such an offensive genius, you've got this guy that's a game-changing tight end. How is your scheme so strict to what it needs if you're that much of a genius that you can't fit this guy who is clearly can be a productive pass catcher in the NFL? That's a tough one for me to wrap my head around. Make sense.
It's been tough all summer, honestly, because they played him deep into the second preseason game to get him more reps as a blocker. That's not why they drafted him originally in 2018. Adam Gase originally his rookie year wanted him to block. Brian Flores, for all his flaws as a guy that, from an offense perspective, they used Gesicki the right way. They used him as technically a wide receiver. Last week in Baltimore, we saw more of Mike Gesicki in the role that made him successful as more of that wide receiver type.
Yeah.
I would expect that he's kind of Miami's like quote unquote fifth wide receiver at this point. They've been using Durham Smythe a ton on early downs. He's technically the starter over Mike Gesicki.
He was one of our sneaky
tight end 2 targets
because we liked his blocking ability.
Yeah. And if Gesicki's had good success against Buffalo through his
Jason's
career.
Saying the same thing
right here. Yeah.
They need to find him, get him the ball early. And
get the linebackers in some conflict.
Absolutely. And, that could open up more things for Hill or Waddle. And if Gesicki's drawing some attention in the middle, could allow.
Oh, I think we're losing you there, Tom.
Might have lost you there for a second, Tom.
It's okay.
All right, let's jump into Tua.
So if Gesicki can find a way to do the things that he can do, that can open up a lot more for everybody else.
Yeah, for sure. So it really goes with Tua, right? This is, I think, to me, this game for Tua, he had a bit of a coming out party, but again, let's call it what it was. It was a quarter, right, of one or a half, but mostly a quarter of really phenomenal historical level play, right? That we saw that he can do this. But I think, we talked about earlier, it's a measuring stick game, but I don't think that there's a better measuring stick than this to find out if your guy is it or not. Because I've said for years here, Greg's heard me say it about both Mac Jones and Tua, that I think they're probably not as good as the national media wants to tell everybody they are, but probably better than Bill's Mafia and Bill's Twitter wants to admit that these guys are, right? Like they're quarterbacks that you can win with in the NFL. And so this one's a good opportunity for him, though. It's a top-rated defense. It's a zone-heavy defense, so he's going to have to use his brain and that processing ability. Accuracy and touch is going to matter in getting the ball to these playmakers. And they have a top-rated pass rush that can get to you with 4. And so he's going to have to face all these different things, and it's going to be a big divisional game. There's a lot of national attention here. So this is the opportunity for Dolphins fans to find out if this guy is like, if Tua's going to get an extension in Miami, I think it's going to be built on how he performs in a game like this.
Yeah. He's never been shy from the big moment. From college perspective, and as well as obviously last week was a big moment for him as well. He finds ways. The best way I could really talk about Tua is that he finds ways to win. You know, he's won a lot more than quarterback in this league as they lost. Yes, it's not a quarterback, statistic, the wins and losses, it's a team sport. But the teams that he has run, the offense, as porous as they have been, they find ways to win football games. He helps them find ways to win games. I would expect, in this game, yes, he's got to be able to process what Buffalo's throwing at him. Buffalo's is a complex defense. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at him. They're going to try to confuse him as much as possible, force him into the mistakes that he's been prone to do throughout his career so far. But I think Mike McDaniel also knows that, and he's going to try to, work to it into this game and build confidence in his ability to potentially beat, this defense. I wouldn't even be surprised if he dials up a deal, if he gets time and he gets a chance to let one go for 40, 50 yards, and then let it be what it's going to be. If it's going to be incomplete, intercepted, or caught, whatever. But you want to have him go out there because he got hurt in the game last year. Obviously, that was in his head. And obviously, Jesse Davis doesn't help matters, that cement truck that he is. I think they want to get confidence in him early in this game and see where it takes him. And if it's a rough start and Buffalo's, up by 2 scores early in the first quarter, midway through the first quarter, it's just going to be another ho-hum victory for Buffalo. But I think Mike McDaniel is going to do everything he can to let instill some confidence into Tua and allow the offense to just be themselves, not force the issue, hit the screen passes, hit the underneath stuff, try to get Buffalo up to the line, and then see if he can hit the deep ball.
So on that note, what do you expect here? What are you expecting in this game, and what's your prediction?
My fingers are crossed that it's going to be what I said at the beginning of the show, trying to hold Buffalo to a score that is, make it a competitive game. I think Buffalo wins. Unfortunately for me to say that, but I think Buffalo is going to win. Until Miami can prove that they can do it, Buffalo, for me, is going to win. I think that this might be the game. It could be a little bit closer. I'm that the Bills win 30-23. That's my prediction for the game.
I like it. Let the people know. I obviously love seeing your work, everything you have going on at Dolphins Talk, and let the folks know where they can see everything you have going
on. You can follow me on Twitter at Dolphin Tom. Our website is dolphinstalk.com. We have a lot of great podcasters, a lot of great articles. We actually just had Larry Zonka on our podcast, promoting his book. So a lot of good stuff on our site. So we do appreciate anyone. Obviously, Bills fans are more than welcome to follow along. And I think we're all in agreement to an extent that following an in-division rival allows you to keep up with what's going on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and we recommend it again. As Tom said, Dolphins Talk Tom is a great follow, and the Dolphins Talk account is a great one as well. Just being able to see, everything they have going on, really good in-depth coverage, very similar to what we do at Cover One for the Dolphins. So it's why we always love having you on. And if nothing else, we both teams healthy, a nice, fun, competitive game, and then we can see, most importantly, that everyone beats the Patriots and everybody can be happy.
Absolutely. Right. The most important thing is always Patriots.
Exactly. All right. Appreciate your time. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care, guys. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. All right. Always fun. Yeah. Always great to have Tom on. It's a great time to be able to go through. And, I joked about the idea of, it's this has been a rivalry like a hammer is a rival with a nail. It hasn't. And I argued with people who were saying, oh, the rivalry's back. I'm like, hold on. Don't get me wrong. The hype is back. The attention is back. Bill Simmons and Cousin Sal called it their marquee matchup of the week. It's the game they were looking forward to watching the most. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's not a rivalry until they win. Sean McDermott is 9-1 against the Dolphins. Mm-hmm. Josh Allen is 7-1 against the Dolphins. The one loss is a Charles Clay dropped pass at the end of the game from a win and being 10-0 and 8-0. The point differential in that time period is an average win of 18 points per game. They've outscored them by 144 points. It's not a rivalry until they can win. And I meant the things I said. Javon Holland's awesome. He is a phenomenal player. I mean it that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle terrify me. I don't want to see them with space. I also don't think they're going to shut this team out. I think they're too explosive, and I don't think we're going to see what we've seen the first 2 games with 7 points and 10 points. I think they're going to put up some points. I think those guys are too explosive. Gesicki's too much of a weapon in the red zone. I don't think they can keep up. I don't think they can outscore Buffalo, and I think although their explosion and their capabilities on that side of the ball are dangerous, I just don't think their defense could keep up with our offense.
Yeah, this one's tough for me because the past is not the present. This is a new Dolphins team. It's a new regime. There's a lot of the same players, but it's new. There's a lot of newness to it. But I do agree with you. I give a lot of thought to this sort of matchup as a whole this week. And I kind of come back to the same thing of that. This is still, I've said it on the show before, I'll say it again. This is still a drought era Bills team, in my opinion, in the NFL until they prove otherwise to me. And the Bills are now legitimately becoming, not just in the Bills circle and the Bills fan base, the Bills are literally becoming what the Patriots used to be to this division, where if you're that team that is what the Bills used to be, now you have to prove it by going out and beating the Patriots. A lot of people are beating the Bills. A lot of people are talking about a success for Miami would be just hanging in.
Yes.
This game,
it's
right?
insane. Like look what Tom, what he just said is that, hey, I just want to see them keep it close.
Yes. Keeping it close.
This is in Miami.
Not getting run over by this team. But that is how people used to talk about the Bills going in. Hey, if they can keep it close to New England and
if we
like
could
maybe they're a legitimate
Brady,
team.
maybe a couple breaks will go our way.
Yes. And that they can be a legitimate team if they can just hang in against this team. So the Bills are this measuring stick. But yeah, until we see from the Dolphins their ability to beat the Bills, I'm going to continue to think that they are this sort of just drought era 500 hanging around wild card team. One thing I will say, I don't believe into it, even though a lot of people are talking about how they really believe in this past week and that one quarter was indicative of what he potentially can do with Mike McDaniel. And maybe I think there's going to be some of that, but I think Tua is much more of a Kirk Cousins than he is Josh Allen, right? Like he can put up these impressive.
If you want to know other guys who have had 400-yard, 5 and 6 touchdown games,
sure,
Billy Volek and Matt Flynn and Ryan Fitzpatrick and people like that. Like, don't get me wrong, it's great. And Nathan Peterman's never done that. And it means that he's not the historically floundering, horrific quarterback that maybe some of us hoped that he was. Like, if you're capable of doing that
in an NFL game,
you have some talent. But doing that in one game when very obviously the Ravens not only lost some starters, like they lost Marlon Humphrey, their best corner, didn't have any backups who could come in to do anything functional, and very clearly had that thing where you take your foot off the gas and then you can't kind of recapture that same fire as you had before. And like once that ball starts rolling and that momentum starts going, it's really hard to undo.
For sure.
And that, hey, God bless them. They scored 4 touchdowns in a quarter.
And sometimes that spark is all, we've seen it in sports where all you need is that confidence to run and go.
Our second half against the Buccaneers.
Totally. Absolutely. It happened that Arizona game the year before. You go, you just get a spark and whatever it is, it starts a run. So maybe this is it for them. I don't believe it is. I think he's more like Kirk Cousins, where he'll have some statistical great games with Mike McDaniels with this offense. But I ultimately don't believe that he's that guy. And I guess this will be that test. Like we said to Tom, this will be that test to find out, is he? Because if you are, you play big in this game. But this game,
really good one from Walter here.
What is this from Walter?
This whole rivalry is reminiscent to our 2019 season, where the Bills fans were pumped for both Pats games and we got our hearts broke both times. We were ready to end. Yeah. We knew we were going to go to the playoffs. We were going to be the ones that took the division from Brady, and he got us both times.
Yeah. I think we're going to still get him here. But in thinking about this, I like to make, as anyone that listens to the show knows, I often like to make references to 90s basketball. randomly. And I like this Bills team, I associate sort of with that early Bulls team. I've talked about it with the KC is kind of their Detroit, and they got to get over that. I believe that's more of a rivalry, having beat KC in the regular season, than this not being a rivalry here, this one. But this reminds me of this Waddle and Tyreek reminds me of like great teams on NBA Jam in the early 90s that would have like, they had a great duo and they were fun to play with and fun to use and they were fun to watch. And if you got them on a hot night, no matter who your team was, like they could put it up and go toe to toe with anyone. But ultimately, they didn't have Michael Jordan, and the Bulls did. And ultimately,
we have Michael Jordan now.
Yeah, we've got the Michael Jordan in the NFL right now, or the thing closest to that, in an unstoppable player. And ultimately, that's all that matters, in my opinion, in this game. Is we got the guy that's unlocked football and playing at a ridiculous level, and like that's cool. You got these cool, fun new toys in the division, and I'm sure your fans are excited about that. But you don't have MJ, and maybe you get one of these regular season games, and you get a hot day and you get going. But good for you. But when it really gets going here in the AFC East, you got to have the big dog, and the Bills do, and they don't have that yet. So, but it's a fun team. I'm happy for Dolphins fans. But again, you're the drought era Bills until you knock us off.
Yeah.
Them's the rules, guys.
Yeah, that's just the way it works. And the Bills are 11-1 in division the last 2 years. And
one was the fluky.
Was the crazy hurricane
wind
game. And the point differential is 214 points.
Yeah.
It's just an unbelievable difference right now. And it's just, Pete saying here the Dolphins scare me zero much. Like I just,
there's some fear.
There are individual
more
matchups
so in the last
that scare me more than previously. Like last week against Tennessee, I had to pretend, and that I just looking at their offensive skill players, I'm like, they can't beat this team. There's no way they can win. They just don't have the weapons to do it. Now this one, I can tell myself a story where
they could break
Waddle
3 plays and keep
Tyreek Hill each break some crazy stuff, and that if they get in space, we do have a player on our roster that can keep up with either of those players, or literally maybe the 2 fastest players in the whole NFL. I don't want to find that out the hard way, but that's how this is going to go and where it's going to come from. So let's wrap up with our friends over at Uncle Jumbo's, our spotlight player of the game. Before we get out of here and get our predictions, I'll kick things off. My spotlight player of the game, it's Von Miller. I need him to be a dominant presence. I need him to have that domino effect where he's making things easy for Gregory Rousseau. I really genuinely hope we have Ed Oliver back, because quick pressure into his face is so impactful for what he tries to do. We know we're very likely not going to have Jordan Phillips. They've been very conservative with hamstring injuries before. That's always been they've usually sat people for 2 or 3 weeks when they've had hammies. We need that. I hope we get Tim Settle back. I think that's in play. If we get Tim Settle back and Ed Oliver back, and then we get that front running the way that it has, Daquan Jones has been great, and you get Von Miller coming off that edge against Greg Little, give me Von Miller against Greg Little as often as we can. Give me out Gregory Rousseau against Greg Little over and over and over again.
Put Gregory Rousseau in the middle there.
Yeah. Oh God, that play where they put him and he mauled that poor little guard against the Titans, Aaron Brewer. Give me some of that. I meant what I said with Tom, that I think the Bills defensive line versus the Dolphins offensive line is what's going to decide this game. What I didn't reiterate is, and I think they're going to kick their ass.
Yeah.
I think the Bills defensive line is going to dominate this Dolphins offensive line.
First of all, I appreciate that idea.
I said a grown-up word.
I don't can I take over now on my spotlight? Okay, then I don't want to cut you off there.
No, Von Miller is my spotlight player.
Von Miller's your guy. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. You know me, dude. It's always in the trenches where it starts, right? But I think for this one, I'm going to cop out a little here and go with the safety tandem for the spotlight player of the game. I don't know if Micah Hyde is going to be included in this or not this week. I really hope. I think tomorrow we'll know, right? Like,
give me a limited tomorrow, just a limited.
Yes, that he's at least doing something. But if not, you're going in with Jaquan Johnson. Again, not ideal. But I think what we did see, or at least what I saw in the preseason, was that ability of how they were still able to do some of the disguise type stuff with those safeties, bringing guys down in the box, kind of that similar to Hyde and Poyer in being interchangeable. We saw that with Johnson and Hamlin. those types of looks and what the back seven is going to be able to do is going to dictate to me what you're talking about in that front portion. If they can take away that first look from Tua or get him to just hesitate for a split second, thinking that it's cover 3 and it's cover 2, or that it's man and it's cover 2, and you got Taron Johnson heading up into the back second half of the field, like giving him just that pause of a second where that first read is muddied or that first read isn't clear, and having him have to go through those progressions. I know Tom said he's better going through the progressions. I know we said maybe some of those broken plays, those guys can't go open downfield, but the data doesn't lie that when Tua doesn't get past that first progression, he doesn't get the ball out of his hands quicker, everything drops, pressure gets to him, all of his data about that drops. So I agree with you that it starts up front and those pressures need to get there. He needs to get hit, but I think it's going to be the small minor things that happen in that back seven that just cause a split second indecisive thing that he hasn't really seen yet in these last couple of games that the Bills do so well. So that's the biggest concern of Micah not being in. The Bills could probably operate that a little bit more and get a little bit more out of that, but I'm still looking for it to cause some confusion to Tua. And I think with the way Tua has played so far in his career, I don't know if he's past it. If he's getting confusion, it's going to be noticeable and it's going to get out of control fast.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on, and I'll pray to see Micah tomorrow in that breakdown.
So.
One last thing here before we get to our game predictions. We want you guys to we get asked all the time, how can we help out? What's the best way to support everything that we do? It's our One Pass subscription. It's in the show description here. It's where you're watching in YouTube, where you're listening on iTunes or Google Podcasts, wherever you're at, however you're listening to us. This is the best way to support us. We just saw some things today. Our packages are arriving. You're getting the shirt, the decal, the welcome letter signed by myself, Aaron, and Eric, welcoming everyone there. And there's a lot more to it as well that you can get from the benefits here.
Yeah, I mean, just the amount of content, you know what to expect from Cover One. If you have been following it all, if you haven't, make sure that you're following everything we're doing and get in on this and talk to the people. Honestly, if you're considering signing up for One Pass, my suggestion would be if you know anyone that's done it or go on Twitter and ask anyone. Our members speak for themselves and the excitement, the people, the sharing, can't wait to get their gear, can't wait to be part of it. The game day atmosphere on our Slack channel, like people want to be a part of it. So just ask them, it speaks for itself. So real excited about this rollout and can't wait to have more of you in the Slack channel joining us every week.
So without further ado, we are here. Aaron, I'll let you lead things off. What is your game prediction for this week 3 Miami Dolphins hosting the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, I think it's a fun story. I think it's good for the AFC East that there's a team that's ascending, right? The Patriots are a team that's fallen apart. They were able to kind of coast and get to the playoffs last year. The Patriots are a team that's completely fallen apart. It's a plane that things are just falling off the side, and they coasted into the playoffs somehow last year. But it's just the wings are starting to go on that thing. Where the Dolphins actually, I think, they have the talent. They've had that talent for a long time. It's putting it together. And I think this is the lead up to this game is a little bit ridiculous. I think people are looking for a story to attach to playing against the Buffalo Bills.
We're going to see it all year.
I think, you're going to get the best from everyone anyway. But I think you're going to get narratives.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick here. How fun is it that we are now the team that you need to be the contrarian against? And now you can see it. I saw Joy Taylor do it. I've seen other people. We are now the team that people have to come up with these narratives of why we're not actually as great as everyone is seeing. Right. How crazy is that that's our new reality?
Yeah, I mean, I welcome it. Absolutely. But I think ultimately where this is much ado about, not nothing. There's something here. The second Tyreek Hill signed with the Dolphins, there was something in terms of like, hey, this could explode at any time. We haven't seen it consistently. We saw it for a quarter. That's 1/8 of the season so far. An
awesome quarter, but one quarter.
And the rest of those eighths, it was not fantastic.
I think Jason, who's been awesome in the chat, they scored 20 offensive points in the other 7 quarters.
Yeah, it hasn't been fantastic. It hasn't been great football. And again, it's 2 weeks. Josh Allen spoke to that on Kyle Brandt's Basement today. Like even the Bills haven't confirmed their identity yet, right? Like teams are still trying to figure each other out. So, but ultimately,
we have more to prove too.
Yeah, I agree with what you said earlier in that I think they'll score more points than previous opponents, but I ultimately still think this is a boat race. And I think at the end of the night, it's maybe not as comfortable as it was with Tennessee, where you're seeing a lot of Case Keenum in the fourth quarter. But I think I've got it 31-23. I think is what I ended up with, 31-23. Yeah. And I think the Bills boat race them. I think they probably score late. You're going to get some Tyreek Hill big plays. You're going to get a Waddle big play. They're going to get some explosives on them. But I don't think that Tua in this offense can consistently do multiple 80-yard drives and keep up with Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen can. I think that he's going to have his way against this defense. They've not been good against the pass. They've not been good again to the quarterbacks. That's not a successful way to attack Josh Allen, especially if you're a blitz-heavy team. Like if you're not going to get home and you're not going to hold up on the back end, Stephon Diggs is unguardable right now in the NFL. I don't think bracket coverage can do it. I don't think one-on-one coverage. There's nothing I don't think you can do. If they get Gabe Davis back, it's a wrap. There's just too much. They cause too much stress on defenses. I don't think a Tua Tagovailoa offense can keep up, even as good as they played in that fourth quarter. So I got the Bills still boat racing and on to the Ravens.
Yeah. Hey, I think you're spot on. It's been where my head is at this entire time. I think that the Buffalo Bills offense is right now, I joke Josh Allen has solved football. Yeah. And that I mean that in the sense that it's now literally pick your poison. There isn't an answer. And Dan Orlovsky did a really nice breakdown that if he's willing to take those checkdowns and to get the ball out in the 2.2 seconds that we saw in some stretches of that game, and that he's going to do that and do that.
Can pick those shots 3 times a game and hit them every time.
And lull you into coming forward. And the moment you come forward, he hits those deep shots over your head and he hits them every time. There's no answer. There's just no answer. And that I don't think it's going to be perfect. Like we saw on Monday night, there was a little slog there in the late first quarter, early second quarter where we missed on a fourth down and they had to kick a field goal. But
week one was ugly at times too.
Yeah, but ultimately they won't have enough answers, and that I think it is reasonably close. I don't think it's crazy that the Dolphins could have a lead at some point. I think that Mike McDaniel is begrudgingly better than I thought he was in his creativity and what he's putting together here. But ultimately, the Bills will pull away, and that they will be in a position where I have it 38-24. I think that they're going to eventually pull away into a comfortable double-digit victory. I think it is going to go over. I think this one's going to have some fun points. Again, I think Waddle and Hill get loose once each, and I think that they probably get one in the run game at some point here because they just have so much team speed that I think we're going to be able to – our bend but don't break will work because I don't think we're going to give up big plays.
Yeah, but they might get 3 of them before. Yeah.
They'll get a broken tackle. It's not and again, Jason, who's been awesome in the chat. The Chiefs never took deep shots over our heads. It's that eventually on one of those shallow crossers, Tyreek Hill gets the angle and just runs by people, and that it's hard for that not to happen eventually in a game. I just don't think they can do it consistently. And I think that we will get to Tua, and I think we will get turnovers, and I think we will force some bad decisions.
I will say I finally got it. I didn't do it week 1. I finally got around to it here for week 2 of doing toxic differential. Oh, and I was actually shocked at how low Miami's explosive pass offense was. Like I know they're not going to have those air yard throws, but I expected to, similar to New England last year, who was a top toxic differential team consistently on offense. And they had a ton of explosive pass plays because Mac was getting the ball out accurately and guys were exploding for plays. I thought you'd see more of that so far in Miami. And even with that big historical fourth quarter, they have 45, which is good for 21st in the NFL, 45 explosive pass plays. So they're not, I mean, Buffalo's at 60 just for reference in 2 games. So we talk about this offense as like, I think it's a potential to be explosive offense, but it actually has not been an explosive offense yet, except for this one quarter.
Yeah. Basically we've just seen the highlights. Yes. We haven't even seen anything beyond those ones, and every highlight you see pretty much is the entire amount that we've seen in
and people will talk about these sample sizes, right? And they'll say, well, the Bills have only played 2 games too, but this, you have more with the Bills going back to the playoff performance, going back even to, before the season ended, Josh was starting to head this way into those playoff performances. So that sample size of Josh's last 6 games is much bigger than what we're seeing with the Dolphins right now. So I expect that Josh to continue on this path where Tua of one quarter, like this could go either way.
Yeah. So ultimately, we're rooting for good health. We're rooting for as many of these guys to get right as possible. That's certainly a big one. We'll be monitoring that as we go here. Unfortunately, I am going to have to say goodbye to everyone for a little bit here. I am heading overseas on a work trip. I leave for Germany on Saturday. I've actually had to make arrangements to make sure I can watch the game from my hotel room in Germany. I actually found where I'm going to be. I'm going to be in Hamburg, Germany. In Hamburg, there is a American football bar, but I can't roll the dice that they're going to have the Bills game or have it available. I can't show up there and then have them not have the game. Yeah. So I'm going to watch it from my hotel room on my computer.
Do you have? I have to ask. Do you have Bills lederhosen?
So I don't.
Because I feel like if anyone does, it's you.
You're not wrong. Yeah. I am bringing my lucky sweatshirt. That again. 716 Transplant made an awesome sweatshirt for me, and I didn't tell anyone. I didn't put it on until halftime of the Rams game. Do you know what's happened since halftime of the Rams game? Of how things have gone since that point? I can't not bring it with, so I'm going to pack it, and I'm going to put it on in my hotel room once I get there. I already have a plan set up to do my flag and to be able to put it in and video my flag going up. I have a plan for my steak and to be able to do everything there. I'm going to try to do everything I need to keep things as consistent as possible, even though I'm going to be watching the game from Germany.
I hate to shatter your ego in front of everybody here on the show, but none of
this game.
Our good friend Del Reed said it a couple years ago. This team's beyond the superstitions. I still do my superstitions too, but actually I laxed up a little bit here this year, and Josh Allen's he's broken football. Matter. Your superstitions don't matter anymore.
He doesn't need
all of you.
He doesn't need me anymore.
I'm still the worst of them
for my mental health.
For your own mental health, that's fine. If you need it to get through the day, I understand that. I would want to. I saw you and Eric were doing the live. Watching the game, and Eric was like, you should hop on with us sometime, and I was like, I pace too much during the game. I'm up, I'm a walker, I'm a pitcher. You wouldn't want to see me. It'd be like watching my toddler run around on FaceTime, like with the camera too close.
I get in literally a ready linebacker stance sometimes on big defensive plays, in the middle of my living room. And
there's a lot of movement. I can pull something. So we will miss you, but we've got you covered still.
Yeah.
They'll be here post-game.
We've got an awesome staff to cover one. We've built an amazing team. You guys are going to be covered, but I will miss our post-game show and our Ravens preview show, but then I'll be back and I won't miss any the rest of the year. So I will miss a couple here. If my internet's working good, I will come harass you guys in the chat though. So we'll work on that. That'd so that I can still say hi.
Yeah.
But ultimately, any final thoughts for the people before we wrap up here? We went long tonight. This is one of our longest previews.
This is a long one. Wow, it was good to talk to Tom. Great follow there. Keeping up on the enemy. And it's just this is such a fun time to talk Bills, Greg. I said the other day that I wished I had more time in the day without my kids because I would have just gone live on YouTube and talked for another 3 hours about this team. I'm calling people out of the blue, like random family members. I'm like, hey, so did you watch the Bills game? And they're not even Bills fans. They don't even care. And so we could probably have done a 2-hour show tonight and kept going. It's a fun time. So I'm excited to see how this game goes and to continue to talk Bills with you guys. But that's it, man. I'm jacked up, ready to, as our friend Joe Marino likes to say, the hay is in the barn here for this week, and it's on to this big game. And I hope that the Bills continue to smack the crap out of the rest of the AFC East and just continue on that path.
Yeah. This is really fun, rooting for the best team in football and just watching our team boat race everybody. And it's not impossible. We could just do it again.
Just bathe in all the great content.
Yeah, I'll just let it wash over me as I continue to watch that and try to fall asleep in some hotel room in Germany. So on that note, we appreciate it. The chat was awesome tonight. You guys were fantastic. Again, we ask for it every week. The algorithm cares. It needs your like. If you like Josh Allen, hit the like. If you like the Buffalo Bills, hit the like. If you like the idea of the Buffalo Bills winning a Super Bowl, hit the like button. It helps us tremendously. And for some reason, that's the way they build their algorithm. And it tells other people about the show. Help us out. give us a like. It really goes a long ways. We've enjoyed you guys tonight. You've been awesome. The chat has been fantastic. We appreciate you guys so much. Check out everything we have going on. Sign up for One Pass. Do all the different things that help us out. We appreciate you guys. Enjoy all of this with us. But on behalf of Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.